The sun hung lazily in the afternoon sky, casting a golden glow over the small village of Greenhill. The dusty streets were alive with the chatter of traders, the laughter of children playing under the shade of the old baobab tree, and the occasional rustling of goats scavenging for food. It was a peaceful village, but peace did not mean kindness, especially not for a man like Victor Promise. Victor, a 25-year-old man, walked through the marketplace, his head held high, but his heart heavy. He could feel the eyes of the villagers on him, some staring with pity, others with mockery. His father, a once respected farmer, had passed away 5 years ago, leaving behind nothing but debts and a crumbling mud house. Since then, Victor had been struggling to survive, doing odd jobs and hoping for a better tomorrow. But in this village, a man was only respected if he had wealth, if he had land, cattle, and influence. And Victor had none of these. What can you offer a woman? At the heart of the marketplace stood James, Victor's childhood friend. Or rather, the boy who used to be his friend. James was now a wealthy merchant, dressed in fine clothes, wearing gold rings on his fingers, and always surrounded by a group of followers who laughed at his every joke. When James spotted Victor, a wicked smile spread across his face. He nudged his friends and said loudly, "Look who we have here, the great Victor Promise, the poorest man in the village." The crowd chuckled, and Victor clenched his fists but said nothing. He had long learned that arguing with fools only made you one of them. James wasn't done. He took a step closer, smirking. "Tell me, Victor, have you finally found a woman desperate enough to marry you?" The men around him burst into laughter. Victor felt his jaw tighten. He knew what James was doing. He was humiliating him, as always. But today, the wound cut deeper because Victor had recently gone to seek the hand of Sarah, a young woman he admired. Her father, after hearing Victor's proposal, had simply laughed in his face. "A man without land, without cows, and without money wants to marry my daughter? Are you here to make jokes, Victor?" the old man had said. Sarah, standing beside her father, had not said a word. But Victor had seen the embarrassment in her eyes. She would rather remain silent than defend him. Now, standing before James, Victor refused to show his pain. He met James' gaze and said calmly, "A man's worth is not measured by what he has today, but by what he becomes tomorrow." James laughed even harder. "That sounds like something a poor man would say." More laughter followed, and Victor walked away before his temper got the best of him. But the whispers followed him. "He is wasting his life here. He should leave the village. There is no future for him. His father was poor, and he will die poor too." The weight of humiliation. As Victor walked through the village, he saw familiar faces, people who had known him since childhood but now looked at him with disappointment. Even the elders, the wisest men in the village, had no words of encouragement for him. One evening, Victor visited the elder's hut, hoping for advice. He sat before Elder Thomas, the oldest and most respected man in Greenhill. "Elder, I want to change my life, but no one believes in me. Tell me, what should I do?" Victor asked. Elder Thomas stroked his long white beard and sighed. "Victor, the truth is, this village only respects men who have something to offer. Your father was a good man, but he died with nothing. You are his son, and in their eyes, that means you are nothing too." Victor swallowed hard. He had always known the truth, but hearing it spoken so plainly made it more painful. "What can I do to change this, Elder?" he asked again. The old man studied him for a long moment before replying. "You have two choices. Stay here and remain what they think you are, or leave, go to the city, and prove them wrong." Victor nodded. He had been thinking about leaving for a long time, but fear had always held him back. But now he had no choice. If he stayed, he would remain a joke. If he left, at least he had a chance to become something. That night, Victor sat outside his small hut, staring at the stars. His mother, Margaret, sat beside him, sensing his sadness. "What is on your mind, my son?" she asked gently. Victor turned to her and took a deep breath. "Mama, I'm leaving for the city." Margaret's eyes widened with worry. "The city is dangerous, my son. You have no family there, no friends. How will you survive?" Victor reached for her hands. I don't know yet, Mama, but I know I cannot stay here. I cannot live my whole life being laughed at. Tears welled in her eyes, but she understood. Then go, my son, but promise me one thing. Never forget where you come from. Victor nodded. I promise. And so, before the sun could rise, he packed his few belongings and set off towards a new life, leaving behind the village that had never believed in him. I cannot stay where I am not wanted. The morning Victor left Green Hill, the village was just beginning to stir. Women were fetching water from the stream, men were heading to their farms, and children were running barefoot through the dusty paths. But no one paid attention to Victor as he walked towards the road leading out of the village. He carried only a small bag with a change of clothes and a few coins his mother had secretly given him. His heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. He had never left Green Hill before. The city was a mystery, dangerous but full of opportunity. His mother, Margaret, followed him to the edge of the village, her eyes filled with unshed tears. My son, please think about this again, she pleaded. The city is not like the village. It is a hard place. You have no family there, no one to help you. Victor turned to her, taking her hands in his. Mama, I know it will not be easy, but I cannot stay here. I cannot spend my whole life being mocked. I will return, but when I do, I will be a different man. Margaret sniffed and nodded slowly. Then go, my son, but promise me one thing. No matter how difficult things get, do not lose yourself. Do not forget who you are. Victor swallowed the lump in his throat. I promise, Mama. She reached into her wrapper and handed him a small cloth bag. Take this. It is all I have, but it may help you when things get hard. He opened it and saw a few crumpled notes, barely enough for a few meals, but it was her way of showing love. He hugged her tightly. Thank you, Mama. I will make you proud. With one final look at his mother, Victor turned and walked away, his heart heavy, but his mind set. Arrival in the city, the struggle begins. The city was nothing like Green Hill. It was loud, crowded, and fast-moving. Cars honked, people shouted, and the smell of roasted meat mixed with the scent of garbage in the air. Victor stepped off the old bus and looked around, unsure of where to go. He had no relatives, no friends, and nowhere to sleep. He wandered the streets for hours until night fell. By midnight, hunger gnawed at his stomach. He had spent the little money his mother gave him on transport, and now he had nothing left. He sat on the cold pavement, watching as well-dressed people walked past him, not even sparing him a glance. Is this how my life will be? He whispered to himself. But no, he had not come this far to give up. The next morning, Victor woke up on a bench in a small park. His body ached from sleeping on the hardwood, but he had no time to complain. He needed to find work. He walked around, asking shop owners if they needed a helper. Most of them ignored him. Some laughed in his face. By noon, he saw a group of young men carrying heavy loads into a warehouse. Desperate, he approached the supervisor, a short, muscular man with a scar on his forehead. Sir, do you need another worker? Victor asked. The man looked him up and down. You look too weak for this job. Can you carry 50 kilos? Victor nodded. I can carry whatever you need me to. The man scoffed but pointed to a sack of grain. Carry that to the back, and I'll see if you're useful. Victor bent down and lifted the sack onto his shoulders. His muscles screamed in protest, but he kept moving. 1 step, 2 steps. His back ached, but he reached the storage area and set the sack down. The supervisor nodded. Not bad. You can start tomorrow. That night, Victor found an abandoned wooden shack to sleep in. It was nothing compared to the house he had in the village, but it was better than sleeping outside. Victor the hard worker. For weeks, Victor worked from sunrise to sunset, lifting heavy bags, cleaning storehouses, and running errands for shop owners. He barely made enough money to eat, but he never complained. While other workers took breaks, he kept working. While others grumbled about the heat, he focused on his tasks. His hands became rough, his muscles stronger, and his body leaner. One day, a rich contractor named Mr. Anderson came to the warehouse to inspect some construction materials. As he watched the workers, his eyes landed on Victor, who was sweating, covered in dust, but still moving with energy. Mr. Anderson turned to the warehouse owner. Who is that young man? The owner chuckled. That's Victor. He works harder than anyone here. Never complains, never slacks. Mr. Anderson stroked his beard. I like his spirit. Later that day, as Victor was loading cement bags onto a truck, a voice called behind him. Young man. Victor turned and saw an older man in an expensive suit. Mr. Anderson. Yes, sir. How much do they pay you here? Victor hesitated. Not much, sir, but I'm grateful for the job. Mr. Anderson smiled. Come with me. I have a better job for you. A life-changing opportunity. Victor followed Mr. Anderson to a large construction site where men were working on a huge building. I own this project, Mr. Anderson explained. I need someone hardworking to oversee my laborers. Are you interested? Victor's eyes widened. Yes, sir, but I have no experience. Mr. Anderson laughed. You have experience in hard work, and that is enough for me. From that day, Victor's life changed. He became a supervisor, earning more money than he ever imagined. He saved every coin, determined never to be poor again. Within a year, he had learned everything about construction, how to manage workers, negotiate contracts, and oversee large projects. Mr. Anderson, impressed by his dedication, made him a business partner. And just like that, Victor Promise was no longer a poor man. He was on his way to becoming a self-made millionaire. Victor's life had changed in ways he never thought possible. From the moment Mr. Anderson had offered him a job at his construction company, everything seemed to fall into place. He spent the next few months working harder than ever before. He learned everything there was to know about managing construction projects, how to allocate resources, supervise workers, negotiate with suppliers, and ensure everything was done to perfection. The grueling hours, long days, and intense pressure became the backdrop to his transformation. Every morning, Victor woke up at the crack of dawn, ready to meet the challenges of the day. He'd leave his small apartment in the city and walk to the construction site, where he worked alongside the laborers. His boss, Mr. Anderson, was not one to praise people for doing what was expected, but Victor had earned his respect by simply giving his best every single day. Victor had learned to put aside his pride and his doubts. He had once been ridiculed by everyone in his village for being poor, but now he had something greater, self-respect. He took pride in his work. It was no longer about being seen as successful by others. It was about knowing that he was building his future brick by brick. One evening, after a long day of inspecting work sites, Mr. Anderson invited Victor to his office. The office was sleek, with polished wooden floors and large windows that overlooked the city. Mr. Anderson had just finished a meeting and sat behind his large desk, his fingers steepled together. Victor, he began, his voice calm and authoritative, you have proven yourself time and again. You work harder than anyone I know, and I've seen how you handle the team. Victor stood in front of the desk, his hands clasped behind his back. Thank you, sir. I'm just doing my job. I've learned a lot from you. Mr. Anderson smiled slightly. It's not just about doing your job. It's about doing it with integrity and passion. You got both. Victor was stunned. He hadn't expected Mr. Anderson to say such things. I have a proposition for you, Mr. Anderson continued. There's a major road construction project coming up. It's the biggest one we've ever done. I'm offering you the chance to manage it. Victor blinked in disbelief. Me? Manage it? Mr. Anderson nodded. Yes, Victor. I believe you have the skills. I've watched you work. This is your chance to prove to everyone, especially yourself, that you can do this. Victor's heart raced. This was it. This was the break he had been waiting for. This project could change everything for him. I won't let you down, sir, Victor said with a renewed sense of purpose. Mr. Anderson's expression softened. I know you won't. But remember, this is a big responsibility. You'll have to manage a whole team, deal with government officials, handle contracts, and make sure everything runs smoothly. Are you ready for that? Victor took a deep breath. I'm ready. I won't back down. The road to success. The road construction project was massive. It involved clearing a large area, laying down the foundations, and building the road with proper drainage systems. The project required precision, coordination, and incredible attention to detail. Victor had never managed something this big before, but he knew he could do it. On the first day, Victor arrived at the site early in the morning. He was dressed in work boots, a reflective vest, and a hard hat, just like everyone else. The workers looked at him, curious. Most of them had worked on similar projects for years, and they didn't know if the young man in charge would be able to handle the pressure. Victor stood before the crew and addressed them, his voice steady and firm. "Good morning, everyone," he began. "I know I'm new to this position, but I promise you I will work hard for you. We're in this together, and I need your help to make this project a success. Let's work hard and show everyone that we can do this." The men and women looked at him skeptically at first, but something in his voice made them take notice. They had seen many supervisors before, some of whom gave orders from a distance, but Victor was different. He wasn't just telling them what to do. He was ready to lead by example. As the days passed, Victor's leadership skills began to shine. He worked side by side with the laborers, making sure the plans were followed and that the work was done efficiently. He checked every detail, from the quality of the materials to the worksite's safety protocols. Whenever a problem arose, Victor handled it calmly and swiftly. He was always the first to show up in the morning and the last to leave in the evening. One afternoon, Victor was inspecting the roadbed when one of the workers approached him. "Victor, we've hit a problem. The soil here is too soft to support the road." Victor walked over and examined the area. "Okay, let's figure out what we need to do. Get the engineers here, and I'll talk to the suppliers. We need to fix this, but we're not stopping." He was calm under pressure, and that was what the workers admired about him. They saw that he was solution-oriented. In the following weeks, Victor managed the project with remarkable efficiency. The work was going smoothly, and even the government officials overseeing the project were impressed by his professionalism. One day, Mr. Anderson visited the site. He watched from a distance as Victor spoke to the workers, then turned to the project manager. "He's doing great," Mr. Anderson said with a smile. "I knew he was the right choice." The project was now a few months in, and Victor had gained the trust of everyone involved. His reputation as a capable and dedicated manager spread throughout the industry. The big day, the project completion. After months of hard work, the project was finally completed. The new road stretched for miles, and it was perfect, smooth, strong, and built to last. Victor stood on the newly paved road, looking at the result of all his hard work. The workers were celebrating around him, and Mr. Anderson approached him with a wide grin. "You did it, Victor. I knew you could." Victor smiled, but it wasn't about the praise. It was about what he had accomplished for himself. He had gone from being the poor son of a farmer, laughed at by his community, to managing one of the most successful construction projects in the city. "Thank you, sir," Victor said, "but I couldn't have done it without the team. We all made this happen." Mr. Anderson nodded. "True, but you were the one who made sure it happened. You've proven yourself." As a reward, Victor was handed a check for a significant amount of money, far more than he had ever imagined. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about the fact that he had earned it. He had worked for it. "This is just the beginning," Mr. Anderson said, shaking his hand. "You've got a long career ahead of you, Victor." With that, Victor left the construction site, his heart full of pride and his mind focused on the future. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment when he could finally say he had made it. The sun rose over the city, casting a golden hue on Victor Promise's sprawling mansion. He stood on the balcony, looking out at the life he had built for himself. It was hard to believe that just a few years ago, he was a struggling laborer in the city, mocked by his own people back in the village. Now, he was one of the most successful businessmen in the country. His construction company was booming, and he had expanded into real estate, agriculture, and logistics. Money was no longer a problem. He was wealthy beyond imagination. His garage was filled with luxury cars, Mercedes-Benz, Range Rovers, and a custom-made Rolls-Royce. His mansion, a masterpiece of modern architecture, had everything one could dream of: a swimming pool, a private gym, and even a personal cinema. But despite all the wealth and success, Victor never forgot where he came from. He had once been the boy who was laughed at, the man who had been told he would never amount to anything. He had been rejected, ridiculed, and humiliated. And now, it was time to return home. "Sir, everything is ready." Victor turned away from the balcony as his personal assistant, Henry, entered the room. "Sir, everything is ready. The convoy is prepared, and the security team is in place." Victor nodded. "Good. Let's go." Outside, a fleet of luxury cars lined up in front of the mansion. At the center of it all was his Rolls-Royce Phantom, shining like a jewel under the morning sun. His staff, including his drivers, security team, and personal assistants, stood at attention. Victor adjusted his designer suit, put on his sunglasses, and stepped into the Rolls-Royce. The doors closed silently, and the convoy roared to life, heading towards the village that once rejected him. News of Victor's return spread like wildfire through the village. Women abandoned their chores to rush to the roadside. Men who had once mocked him now whispered amongst themselves in disbelief. Children, not fully understanding the excitement, ran barefoot, trying to catch a glimpse of the luxurious cars approaching. At the heart of the village, James, the same childhood friend who had humiliated Victor, stood frozen at the marketplace, his face pale with shame. He had once laughed at Victor, telling him that a poor man like him could never be respected. Now, he watched as the village erupted in celebration for the man he had mocked. The convoy came to a slow stop in the village square. The people stared in awe as the Rolls-Royce's door opened, and Victor stepped out. "Victor, is it really you?" The village chief, an old man with a wrinkled face, stepped forward, his cane trembling in his hand. "Victor, is it really you?" Victor smiled, removing his sunglasses. "It's me, Chief." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The women who had once rejected him for being poor rushed forward, adjusting their headscarves and trying to look attractive. "Oh, Victor, you have changed," one of them exclaimed, batting her eyelashes. "You have grown so handsome," another woman said, placing a hand on her chest. The same women who had turned their backs on him, who had once laughed and said, "What can a man without land, money, or cattle offer a woman?" now stood in front of him, desperate for his attention. Victor chuckled softly. "Interesting. I remember when none of you wanted anything to do with me." Their faces turned red with shame. "James, where are you hiding?" As the crowd celebrated Victor's return, whispers spread about James. "Where is James?" someone asked. James, who had once been the village's richest young man, now stood in the shadows, too ashamed to come forward. Victor turned, his sharp gaze scanning the crowd. "James, where are you hiding?" A few men hesitantly stepped aside, revealing James standing awkwardly near a market stall. Victor smirked. "James, old friend. Come, greet me." James swallowed hard, his pride crumbling. Slowly, he walked towards Victor, his head bowed. "Victor, you what?" Victor interrupted, tilting his head. "You laughed at me, didn't you? You said I would never be anything in life. Do you still think that?" James couldn't meet Victor's eyes. "I was wrong." Victor studied him for a long moment before sighing. "James, life teaches us lessons in different ways. You mocked me when I had nothing. But look around. You and I are not the same anymore." James looked down, his face burning with humiliation. Victor turned to the villagers. "To everyone who mocked me, abandoned me, or looked down on me because I was poor, I forgive you. But let this be a lesson. Never judge a man by where he is today, because you don't know where he will be tomorrow." The crowd cheered. A heart of gold. Despite everything, Victor had not returned for revenge. He had come to give back. He announced that he was going to build a modern school for the children of the village, so no child would ever have to suffer the way he had. He promised to create job opportunities for the youths, so they wouldn't have to leave for the city in search of work. The people wept with gratitude. The same elders who had once called him a failure now bowed before him, blessing him for his kindness. As the sun set over the village, Victor looked around and smiled. He had returned not as the broken boy they once mocked, but as a man of power, respect, and success. The one who got away. As the celebration continued, Victor noticed a familiar face standing at a distance. It was Lillian, the only girl who had once shown him kindness when he was poor. Unlike the other women, she had never laughed at him, but she had been too afraid to stand up for him. Now, she stood quietly, watching him. Victor walked over to her. "Lillian, You didn't come running to throw yourself at me like the others. Why? Lillian smiled softly. Because I don't deserve to. Victor studied her for a moment before extending his hand. Come, let's talk. Unlike the others, Lillian had never insulted him, and now he wanted to hear her story. That night, Victor sat outside his newly built mansion in the village, looking up at the stars. His journey had been long and difficult, but he had made it. He had once been the poor boy no one wanted to associate with. Now, he was the man everyone admired. And as he sat there, he realized something. His success was not just about money or status. It was about proving that no matter where you come from, hard work, perseverance, and resilience can change your destiny. The village would never forget the day Victor Promise returned, and neither would he. The village was still buzzing with excitement long after Victor Promise's grand return. His convoy of luxury cars, his sharp designer suit, and the way he had silenced those who once mocked him had left the villagers in shock. But despite everything, Victor was not a man of revenge. He had returned not to gloat, but to teach a lesson that no man's destiny is fixed and that mocking someone today does not determine their future. That evening, as the celebrations continued, Victor stood before the entire village. The elders, the women who had once rejected him, and the men who had ridiculed him all gathered to listen. He took a deep breath and spoke. I have no hatred in my heart. What happened in the past is the past. But let me leave you all with one thing to remember. A man's present condition does not determine his future. Many of you laughed at me when I had nothing. But look at me today. The crowd was silent. Today, I forgive you all, but I will never forget. Not because I hold grudges, but because remembering where I came from reminds me to stay humble. James, his childhood friend who had once humiliated him, kept his head down, unable to meet Victor's gaze. The village chief nodded in approval. Wise words, my son. You have taught us all a lesson today. Victor smiled faintly. He had proven himself, and that was enough. Building a legacy. The next morning, Victor gathered the elders, the village youth, and a group of engineers he had brought from the city. Standing in the center of the village, he made an announcement that would change the future of his hometown forever. This village shaped me. It gave me pain, but it also gave me strength. Today, I want to give something back. The villagers listened, eager to hear what he had planned. I'm going to build a school here, a place where our children will learn, grow, and become great. No child from this village will have to suffer because of lack of education. Gasps of surprise filled the air. One of the elders stepped forward. A school? But why, my son? Victor smiled. Because no child should suffer the way I did. If I'd been given a better education, maybe life wouldn't have been so hard for me at the beginning. I want to make sure that no child in this village grows up thinking they are worthless just because they have nothing. The villagers erupted in cheers. Victor turned to the engineers. Start the work immediately. Money is not a problem. I want the best school for these children. He looked up at the sky, feeling a warmth in his heart. This school wouldn't just be a building. It would be a symbol of hope for generations to come. And he would name it Promise Academy, in honor of his late father, the happiest mother in the village. Back at his childhood home, Victor's mother, Margaret, sat on the veranda, her heart full of joy. She watched as the villagers now treated her with respect. The same people who had once pitied her, who had whispered about her son being a failure, now looked up to her with admiration. Women from the village approached her. Mama Victor, your son is truly a great man, one of them said. Another added, you must be so proud. Margaret wiped a tear from her eye and smiled. I always knew my son was destined for greatness. The world just needed time to see it. Victor walked up to her and knelt at her feet. Mama, I told you I would return a different man. She cupped his face in her hands. My son, you have done more than I ever dreamed. You have made me the happiest mother in the village. Tears filled her eyes. Your father would have been so proud of you. Victor smiled. This is just the beginning, Mama. I left with nothing. I returned with everything. That evening, as the sun began to set, Victor walked alone to the highest hill in the village. From there, he could see everything, the fields, the river, the huts, and in the distance the construction of Promise Academy already beginning. He took a deep breath, watching the golden sun sink into the horizon. This village had once been a place of pain, rejection, and mockery for him. But now, it was a place of victory, respect, and legacy. He had left with nothing, and now, he had returned with everything. As the wind blew through the trees, Victor smiled. This was only the beginning. The end.